Hello and welcome to Ivory Blush Roses. My name is Lisa. Today we're stitching seam 15 on the CQtober project. We're halfway. I think after this there's 16 more seams to go. So we're going to call it halfway. There's one seam that I'm not sure if we're going to do all as one, and if we divide it in two then there's 17, but we're just getting so close. So it's either a total of 31 or 32 stitches on this project. Let's figure out what today's seam is. We have our bowl of stitches. Here's one. Let's see what it says. Maidenhair stitch. I love this one. So I'm really looking forward to stitching this one. I already know what I'm going to do with that seam. I'm not sure where we're going to put it yet, but I know exactly what we're going to do for extras on it. So let's get started. We've got a lot coming down here and over here. But this corner has been a little bit neglected. We have this long seam to do. We have this long one and this one. Most of our really long seams are gone. We have one over here. We have this one over here. I don't think I want to do the maidenhair over here. I think we need something that's not a feather type stitch because we've got 3 feather stitches right there. I'm really thinking I'd like to do something down here. You know, no matter how often I clean up the cat hair, it's just back. And so this one's kind of a feather. I'm actually thinking that might go nice around here. Let's do that fun curved seam. I think this one would be good. So let's take a look at colors on that. On this one, we're going to be doing the maidenhair. So it comes down and then it has 3 branches that come up. Now, if you watch the Rick Rack videos, you'll remember that I had a hard time figuring that out because I just got something different in my head and it did not work. Hopefully this time we will have it figured out. Now we have pretty dark fabrics on one side and then we have this multicolor on this side. We're going to have quite a bit of stuff going on with that one stitch. I'm just looking at my colors here, trying to think what I would like, and I'm thinking that that orange is a really good one on that seam. And then what do we want to go with it? We have this green, but it doesn't show up very well on there. That's the medium one, I think. And then we have this one with the brown in it, and that shows up a little bit better. I'm not sold on it though. And this one is that really cool green. I mean, that is the green that's in here. And it actually surprisingly shows up okay on that. So that's a possibility for green. But I think we're going to do the main stitch with the orange. So then what other color do we want in there? I'm kind of coming back to this one. I'm thinking that burgundy would be good. We haven't really used much of that over here. We've got a couple places now over on the other side. So I think that one is good. I know it looks like we were always following a similar pattern, doesn't it? That we've always got a red, orange or gold, and green. That's pretty much the standard here. But let's get that green threaded up and get this on the hoop and we'll get started. I've changed setup slightly. As I've gotten more stitching on this project, I felt like the hoop was damaging some of those stitches. So I've switched over to a square frame and I've just put out the part that I'm going to be stitching. And we'll see how well that works. I have quite a bit of it rolled up, but some of it is off to the side. Let me show you. This is a stitch on a different project that I did. This is my Molly Feathers project. And this is maidenhair. So you can see where it comes down straight and then goes up, but the center stem of it always stays straight. So now whether it curves or not on a seam, that's fine, but everything comes off of that center. Now typically maidenhair is done with 3 things off the side, but I think we're going to do it with 2. Let me show you another one, which has a completely different appearance. It's a variation. It would probably be better to call this one a fletched feather, but it's also still sort of maidenhair because you got the 3 coming off the side. Really like the look of that one, but we're not going to do that one. I think we're going to do it with 2, very similar to that other one. Now on this one, I do have to watch. I've got a seam here that I didn't allow for enough fabric. And so I've got a little gap going on, and I knew that even when I basted it. And this edge here is the same way. So we just need to be really careful of that edge. I'm going to start right up here at the top, and I'm going to catch in that piece of fabric even though it's outside, because I'm just trying to help secure it. Now, as I'm thinking about this, I was going to do that all in the green, and I'm actually wondering, what if we did that in the red? And then do the extras with this. Let's do that. Let's change it up. Because so far we've only used red as an accent on most of these. And so let's stitch a seam with it. Let me put this green aside. Get this red out. Now this one is also the number 8, so I've got my bigger needle. But I'm going to start off the same way. So we're going to come down. I'm trying to think, where do I want to be here? We're coming down. We're going to go in. I'm going to catch in that. I'm going to actually see if I can pull it over slightly. And we're bringing it down to our seam. I can do it straight across, or I can do it angled ever so slightly, and I'm going to do this one angled. We're going to make those a little bit closer together. I think that will help us as we go around the curve here. I want to come up in that brown if I can and pull it over. I think that's better. And now I'm going to let this one be a little longer here. Okay, now I think we're getting into the rhythm of this one. So this one I want to come back straight, so that helps me know where I need to come up. And we're going to go straight out. And I'm working on that curve here, so I'm wanting to watch because they're going to flare a little bit as we go. So I'm going to start tipping that up a little bit to get around this curve and have it still look correct. We're going to get that cat hair out of there, and we're going to go up again. And actually, I'm going to try and pull that brown down so that it helps cover that little gap. And we're going to do the same thing again, see if we can pull those together. So like I said, they're going to flare just a little bit as we come around the corner here. And they're going to be a little tighter on the inside. Yeah, I think we've got that down. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. I got that one leg a little long here, but that's okay. We'll shorten it up here now. I think I'm going to wish I'd cut my thread just a smidgen longer, but actually we're right down here at the edge. And working on the frame, I have a little, excuse me, we have just a tiny bit more room. I'm going to just, no, we're going to go right down there. And the reason is I'm within ½ an inch of the edge, and I know that's not going to be visible. So there is the maidenhair stitch. I know last time we let the knots go, and I actually prefer just tying them off. I don't like having those strings dangling and worrying about catching them in. We'll just keep tying them off as we go. All right. So now let's come back with the green. These I always start at the bottom. And so we're going to do them angling out to the side. So I'm going to do 2 off of each one. attempting to scoop stitch rather than stab stitch it because that seems to be what feels more comfortable to me. It doesn't matter which way we go on this, they're a long way apart. So I am just going to see if I can do it without looking at it. I just want to catch my needle through the backing fabric. I don't know if I can do it without looking at it. We may just be zipping back and forth here. I don't really want to tie it off every time. Alright, so I just ran a little catch stitch in the back, and I'm not going to turn it over and show you that every time. I don't want these really coming straight off of that stem. Now this one will be easier to do since it goes the other way. See, I can do that one without having to even look at it. It's going from left to right with it that's a little harder. So just little pairs of lazy daisies. You could do 3, 4, 5. You could do however many you want. You could vary the size. I just need to stab stitch. I just keep trying to do that scoop stitching that I'm so used to doing. Now that I'm further away from the frame, maybe I can just catch that in. Yeah, that worked. And even though this green thread is really very much in the same color as the green in this fabric, it's still showing up okay. So I'm pleased with that. This is going to be a nice, somewhat simpler stitch on here compared to some of them that we've done. And where we go around that curve, it's not quite as much of a lead through the back of it. Let's see if we can bring that other light in here, see if that makes it easier to see. And again, I don't want these to be twisted. And I try not to pull them quite too tight. I like them to have a little bit of fluff in them. And we'll go over that, and that will help hold that brown down. And again, we're pretty close there, so easy catch stitch on the back. And again, remember you can do your maidenhair with more prongs than 2. 3 is pretty traditional, but I've done it with as many as 4 in the past. So most of the stitches that I put in the little bowl, they're just basic stitches. And then we're just simply adding a little bit here and a little bit there and making them unique. It's kind of like doing the rickrack seams, that we're just taking the basics and just doing 1 or 2 things to them to make them more interesting. And it's amazing what you can do with just a really simple basic stitch. I think we're going to finish this one, and then we're going to have to put another piece of thread on that last 2, because I think we're going to be a little short here. Yeah. Let's turn that over, make a knot. So I was trying to say that with my projects, I try to not ever repeat the same seam twice if I'm doing a bigger project with lots of different seams on it. Now, I do have a project coming up. Let me see if we've got an ort in here that we could finish those last 2 leaves off with a length. Let's see what we have here. That looks like that would do, since we don't need much. I do have a project coming up that I'm going to be stitching everything in the same stitch. We'll talk about that when I get to that one, but you often saw that on crazy quilts of old as well. Just depends on the project and what you're doing, but when I'm doing something like this, I liked all my seams to be different and unique. And that was one of the reasons that I decided to put all those stitches. I just made a list of them on the computer, cut them apart, and put them in the bowl. And I could have come up with way more, but I wanted to keep them relatively simple. There we go. That's finished off. Let's tie that one off. I actually am really liking the frame. So this one, I believe, is the mini frame. It's only 1/2 inch instead of 3/4. And they're listed in the description box below if you're interested in looking into getting some of those. Anytime you buy through those affiliate links, I get a few cents on your purchase, but it doesn't cost you anything additional. It's just their way of saying thank you for promoting our products. Now what do we want to do? So I had done clusters of beads here, and I'm not using beads on this project. I'm thinking we're just doing clusters of French knots. Let's do it. I want to give them a little ways apart. No, that didn't work. So let's just go right over the top of it and make our French knot. So that one will look a little wonky right there. There we go. French knot 1. We're going to go off to the side. They don't need to touch. I love stitching French knots with the frame though, or the hoop. What a difference that makes, having that fabric held taut. I feel like my French knots are so much neater with this. I'm just going to jump up here. Since we're working from the inside one now, there's not quite as much distance on the back. I want to leave them a little bit on the loose side. I don't want them too tight. I want them to be a little bit bigger. So pull them till I think it looks like a good bunch, and then pull it through. What is that? I think I pulled the end of my thread through. All of a sudden it looked a little funny. And I love the way this orange shows up on that dark fabric. They show up pretty well on this one as well, so I'm pleased with that. I think using the red for the maidenhair was the perfect choice. Really glad we did that. Again, trying to leave that not quite so tight, so I want it a little bigger. Tell my thread is getting twisted up. With French knots, you always need to let it dangle. Get that twist out of it. Even then, I still can't get it. I just pulled cat hair from somewhere. And if you have a preference for colonial knots, I mean, you can use that in place of French knots. I'm more comfortable making French knots, I suppose. So that's why I tend to lean that way. But I love colonial knots as well, especially when silk ribbon. There's just some little fuzz. I think that's actually a string of the fabric there. But just a pleasant afternoon sitting here and stitching. Really enjoying this. You can tell we got a little twisted underneath there. There we go. Yeah, I've got that fuzzy end, so I'm just going to trim that end off so it doesn't catch as much. Now, as I'm getting near the end of my thread, it's been through the fabric so many times that it does start to fray a little bit. So if you're doing lots of French knots, shorter lengths is probably beneficial. And I'm going to go ahead and put these up here. Even though we're kind of into this fabric here, I just feel like it's going to need that. That one just disappeared. I might need to come back and stitch another one there. That just disappeared completely. I think that's right in that area where the fabric is very thin and there's not a lot of it in the seam. And I might have actually just pulled that initial French knot down in between the fabrics. There we go. That's a fun seam. It reminds me of bittersweet berries. We don't have much of that in Colorado. I often think about how I'd love to plant a bush of it, and then everybody says, oh, don't do that, that's invasive. I don't think it's invasive in Colorado. I'm not positive on that, but I do love the look of the berries at this time of year. And since I pulled that one through so many times and it's really thin, I threw that one away, didn't put it in the Ort jar. So let me get this off the frame and we'll take a look at it. So I'm going to note I'm using this little set of wooden tools that came from Laces. They're not selling them anymore, unfortunately. And so to get a tool like this one, which is really helpful, use an upholstery tack puller. And you can get those. I'll see if I can link one in the description box below. But it makes a big difference. It's very helpful when you're dealing with the tacks. I really love that seam. I've just been having so much fun with these last few seams. Each one of them is so different from one another, and each time I stitch a seam, it's my new favorite. You know, I love them all for different reasons, but I think that one has a simple elegance to it that I just love. It suits my style of stitching. What really matters is how it all works together as a whole. I'm so pleased with how it's all looking. Can't wait to get going on the next one. Thank you once again for being here with me, watching me stitch. It really means so much to me. Have a beautiful day, happy stitching, and I'll see you in the next video.